All right, we eviscerate all the Transformers movies that don't have Shia LaBeouf in them.
Oh, yeah.
Now
I
we're
like
talking.
this.
Now we're talking.
And then we bring back Shia LaBeouf for like another 6 movies, and he's just crazy. He's like, "All right, Optimus, we gotta get the Decepticons. Just do it."
Welcome to your last podcast, the last podcast in the game, but the first you should listen to. I'm your host, Colton Simpson. And with me this week, all the way down at the other end of the table, is Mr. Listen himself, Josh Vey.
What do you at?
And always in my corner, we have the amazing Grace Tatigian.
Hello, hello.
And last but certainly not least, it's our resident audiophile, William Ham Clark.
Kill me.
So what is your last podcast? We're a conversational podcast where every week each of us brings a topic of conversation to argue amongst ourselves and talk it out for your amusement. If you like that, be sure to subscribe to the podcast feed to never miss a new episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're feeling generous or have a couple of bucks to toss our way, you can always head on over to patreon.com/yourlastpodcast and help support the show. And with all that out of the way, I'm the one kicking things off this week. And it's a pretty easy topic. Based on all of these film trilogies kind of coming back with their 4th iteration, like with Toy Story 4 coming out, with Men in Black International coming out, what film trilogy needs a 4th iteration? Now you can say to improve it, to, ruin it, do whatever. What film trilogy needs a 4th iteration? Josh, I'll throw it to you first.
I don't really know if this would be a good one to have an extra movie in, but I really liked these as a kid, and it's so weird because I'm going to eat crow for this because it's sort of a superhero one. But
you're picking the same.
Blade trilogy, I'd love to see.
Okay.
Wesley Snipes on screen again, just eviscerating vampires and beating the shit out of people. I'd love to see another Blade movie because they're just so dumb, so stupid. Like proper Double O's movies, just full of dumb humor, and
my mom loves those movies, which is so strange.
Too.
Yeah, it's like is summoning demons back for this vampire dude to fight and stuff. Like
Daywalker. Well, I'd love to see it again. I'd love to see an extra movie fired in there for Blade. But another one that I sort of thought of as well is I'd love to see a 4th Trailer Park Boys movie.
Oh, has there been 3?
There's been 3. So there was the Trailer Park Boys movie. I'm not sure if that one's called The Big Dirty or not. It might be. I think it might just be called Trailer Park Boys movie from back in the Double O's. Then there was The Countdown to Liquor Day.
Oh, okay.
Which was the sequel. And then there was Don't Legalize It, which is kind of ironic because that came out in 2014, long before dope was ever talked about becoming legal. And that was the premise of the movie, was that they were going to legalize dope. So the boys went to Ottawa to talk the government out of it. So it was pretty interesting. But I'd love to see a 4th one. Now I know Mr. Leahy's gone, so it probably wouldn't be very good, but I think that show could use another movie. It'd be a good laugh.
All right.
But either that or Blade, I'd be fine with either. Or maybe they could do a cross episode or something, have Blade show up to Sunnyvale Trailer Park or something. I don't know. It'd be perfect.
All right, Colton, what about you? I'm afraid someone's going to steal your answer. I don't think you can handle it.
Yeah, mine's just a dumb answer. When I was looking at trilogies, there's a lot that I'll probably save until you guys choose it, not to accidentally choose one of your answers. But the one that we need a 4th iteration the most is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy.
I knew it. That's what I was going to say. That's why I didn't want to talk yet.
We need a 4th one. Yeah. And the reason why is because we've had so many Spider-Man reboots anyways. Bring back Tobey Maguire. Let him be fat and out of shape and sad.
Spider-Verse movie.
That's what I'm saying. He could come back and be that, what was it, Peter B. Parker in that movie where he's playing like the out of shape, washed up Spider-Man. Bring him back. Bring back, what's her face? Who played Mary Jane? Kirsten Dunst.
Yes.
Bring her back. Let Sam Raimi come back. And then you have a movie that is outside of all this Marvel shit. You go back to the old early 2000s, that whole feel, like everything was gritty and vibrant. It was really, those movies are excellent.
Is he still emo in this new one?
Well, I mean, we got to see where his character goes.
I mean, the thing is, those movies had to be good because I liked them and they're superhero stuff. So it had to be somewhat good because I hate all that shit. I abhor it, right? But yeah, they were excellent. Like that Doc Ock one, I love that movie.
Yeah, that's
that
Spider-Man 2. A lot of people love that movie. And people, when they talk about the best superhero movies, they usually mention The Dark Knight, and they'll mention Spider-Man 2, which is hilarious to think about because I own Spider-Man 2 on 3 different copies of DVD. Like, that movie was so popular back in the day, and it was really good. The third one kind of sucks, and I haven't seen it in a while.
I can't even remember the third one.
It's the one where he like walks down the street like snapping and like pointing his fingers, and there's a weird dance break in the middle of it, and he goes weirdly emo. It's also way too long. He fights like 3 different villains.
It's with the
completely
black
separately.
Spider-Man suit. He gets infected, like the
okay.
black symbiote comes on him and he goes emo for like half the movie.
Yeah, what's that called? By
Venom.
Yes.
Yeah. Venom winds up being in the movie. Sandman is one of the villains, the guy who can control sand. Anyways, forget about a lot of that. Bring him back. Spider-Man 4, Sam Raimi. It'll be amazing. It'll be so good.
Be like another Avengers.
That's what I figured you were going to say,
Yeah.
so I wanted you to say it before.
Was
I
that
had
gonna
the
be your
chance.
pick too?
Yeah, that was going to be it because the first thing that I had picked was actually Sex and the City because it's like a guilty pleasure one. And then I realized that there isn't a third Sex and the City movie because apparently the 4 main actresses hate one another and they refused to make it. So I remember there was a lot of talk about a third movie, so I assumed there had been a third one, then realized no, there hadn't. So Spider-Man was definitely my backup answer. And there
Well,
you
listen,
go.
I misunderstood the question as well because I was thinking that originally it was just what series deserves a trilogy, which is a way harder question to answer than just pre-existing trilogy, whack another movie on her. But the one that I was going to go with first was Napoleon Dynamite. Three
Would love
Napoleon
that.
movies with a trifecta of awesomeness. It would have been deadly.
They were supposed to make a sequel to that, and I don't know whatever happened to it. We'll Google it while I'm editing this. But yeah, they were supposed to make a sequel to
That
Napoleon
movie,
Dynamite.
wasn't that made on like a $10,000 budget or something? And it
probably.
made,
I'm sure.
And it made like an odious amount of money. Like it was like in the millions of dollars by the time it was all said and done.
When I
Excellent.
was thinking about Spider-Man, though, the one thing that'll be very upsetting is I'm pretty sure James Franco dies at the end of Spider-Man 3.
Good.
So
I think he might.
you can't bring him back for the 4th movie unless you bring
Why
him back from
not?
the afterlife or something, you
They
know?
bring everybody back in superhero movies.
Bring him
true.
back with Seth Rogen.
Pineapple Express
gosh.
sequel as well. Ham, what's your pick for what trilogy needs a 4th movie?
I kind of got 2.
Okay.
One of them is The Matrix. We'll just have Neo wake up from his death sleep, and then he looks over at Bill and is like, "Bill, I had the weirdest dream," and it's actually just
Bill and Ted 4.
Bill and Ted 4.
Sure.
That-
Second one.
All right, the second one is we eviscerate all the Transformers movies that don't have Shia LaBeouf in them.
Oh, yeah.
Now
I
we're
like
talking.
this.
Now we're talking.
And then we bring back Shia LaBeouf for like another 6 movies, and he's just crazy. He's like, "All right, Optimus, we gotta get the Decepticons." And he just has his like hair he has it now. It's just like a big rat tail, and he just looks crazy.
Sweet.
It can
He's
be
like-
the real Fast Formers.
Oh,
There
it'd
you
be
go.
so good, yeah. No, I want Shia LaBeouf back. He's been writing and directing a couple of different movies here now, so I want him back in Transformers. It'd be great.
The first Transformers was deadly, though. I love that movie. When was that? 07 or something, was it?
Something like that, yeah.
That was a
Yeah, it
sick
was dope.
movie, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's how they actually introduced the new redesigned Chevy Camaro, I believe, as well, was it through the Transformers movie, which was kind of cool in the Bumblebee yellow.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of other popular trilogies. Back to the Future. Does anyone care? Like, should we do a Back to the
No.
Future
I don't think
4?
we
No.
should.
No.
I don't know why
Don't
they went
touch
back
it.
to the Wild West. That's enough. I really don't think we need to go back and do like dinosaurs or something.
All right. What about Godfather?
No.
Is that untouchable?
I haven't
touch
seen
that.
them.
Don't arse with that.
So a lot of people, they hate Godfather Part 3. I actually haven't seen it. So
Sure.
do you think you could do a Godfather 4 and make it better than...
I mean, you could, but
Yeah.
it's like, why take a chance? And why go grave robbing? Why go grave robbing? You know, like you're going literally back to something that was made in what? When was that? 60s or 70s?
70s for Godfather.
For-
And I think the other one was early 90s.
was it early
Godfather
90s?
3?
Out of?
Yeah.
We need another Austin Powers movie.
Oh,
That was on the list
Now
of
we're
movies, but I've
talking.
also never seen those.
Oh,
so.
yes.
All
You
right,
need an
yeah.
Austin Powers 4. That would be perfect. Like
Yes,
for him to
sir.
come back. When we were watching the trilogy there like a couple months ago, it was funny about how like all the jokes would still kind kind of work nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, he was very respectful to women, even though being a womanizer, which when I expected to go back and watch that movie, I was expecting him to be like a misogynist the entire movie, like this terrible dude. But he's excellent. Like, he's so good all three of those movies.
This is a gentleman.
I would like for him to come back and do an Austin Powers movie in like the Me Too culture. Like, see what happens. And they always time travel in it too. It would be crazy. Like, it'd be really interesting to see that character exist nowadays. And I mean, Michael Myers, he hasn't been in like anything.
Yeah, he's old as fuck. That's why.
Lord of the Rings 4.
No, don't touch that.
Don't touch it.
That's a beautiful trilogy there. It's just as well to put that to bed and leave it. Look what they did with The Hobbit. Towards the end of The Hobbit, we were sick of that.
Oh, it was bad.
Did not need
Bastardized
3
that.
movies for The Hobbit. It's like a 100-page book. How do you make that into 3 movies that are all like 3 hours long? It's insane.
Watch it. You'll see it. It's bad. That's how they do it.
I watched the first one and I said, that's enough. And I didn't watch the other 2.
Well, here's some examples of some things that should have been left as trilogies that they did dig up from the grave. Jurassic Park. One of my all-time favorite franchises, right? Terminator, even though the last one was bad, Terminator 3, the ones that have come since have been worse, and now there's a whole another one coming out pretty soon. My God, I mean, Arnold looks like he's about 4,000 years old now. Looks like old Comtran 64 coming back now as a Terminator.
That'd be
or
great,
Commodore
though.
64.
He's just all decrepit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Rusty old Terminator.
I would kind of like to see an Aladdin 4. Do you remember Aladdin, King of Thieves?
The King of Thieves and
Return of Jafar?
Return of Jafar.
I used to watch King of Thieves all the
that
time
was
as
a
a
good
kid.
one.
Yeah,
Are
I
You
loved
In
it.
or Out is definitely an excellent. I had a Disney Villains album, and Are You In or Out was on there. Great
That's
song.
those like direct-to-video release
Yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
They used to do all that
But
stuff back
the
in the day.
Aladdin ones, or at least
Were
from what
actually
I remember,
good.
were actually good. Aladdin 3 was a good movie. I used to watch it all the time. So bring back Aladdin 4.
Does anyone remember Lion King 2?
Yeah, and what was it? One and a half.
1.5?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
gross, eh?
although again, there's one song in Lion King 2 where he's like getting exiled.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good song too. And Belle's Enchanted Christmas. I don't know if there's a third Beauty and the Beast one, but Belle's Enchanted Christmas gets pretty dark at times.
Yeah?
It's a pretty good one. Yeah.
I don't really remember that one too much.
You know what? There was a couple of good like Disney Pixar movies that I hope they just leave as is. Like Moana is one, and Coco is the other one. Where I'm like, I hope they just leave those two
Because they're so good.
They wrapped up nice and clean. We don't need to go fucking with them and trying to squeeze blood from a turnip to try to make a few extra dollars.
I think Coco will be left. I'm not sure about Moana. I think it really matters on Lin-Manuel's career. Like if he winds up blowing up a lot, like even more, like actually in movies, I think they might go for a Moana too. I wouldn't be shocked with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that he's got so many fingers in so many different pies. I have a feeling that's not something he will come back to because there's just so many new opportunities for him.
I'll be interested to see if they bring that back. Do you think Toy Story 4, should have they brought that back? No?
Waste of time. Total waste of time. Especially when you go back and you watch the first Toy Story and the second Toy Story like we did and come to realize, holy fuck, all they did is they went and time traveled back to the original and took all these tiny little open-ended one-liners that weren't even that relevant in the dialogue and they just capitalized on it.
Or were they?
Well,
It definitely was not a
doesn't
plan
land.
all along.
No, it doesn't land.
Yeah, like when we went back and watched Toy Story 1 there last night or the night before last, there was a lot of beats of like what he would say like one offhanded remark, and it's not addressed in number 2 or 3, but then in number 4, they'll do a big flashback sequence to show like, hey, this has been planned all along, when really...
It's not clever.
No, what it was they didn't know how to make a Toy Story 4. It went back to the well with Toy Story 1 and be like, well, what did we set up and not address? And then you make a full movie based around certain things that Woody says in the first movie.
It's the same way as when we watched Fallen Kingdom. Remember how there was a bunch of like throwbacks to the first movie? You're like, they didn't earn this. They didn't earn this. Like the little like objects in mirror are closer than they appear, and same thing with like the raptor toe tapping.
The Brachiosaurus standing up on its...
You guys never earned this. You just cannibalized parts that were high in the first movie and tried to whack them into a shitty 4th iteration or 5th in the case of Fallen Kingdom. But yeah, it's just they gotta stop doing this. Start making new shit by. Stop going back to the past for ideas. Be creative.
Other than Spider-Man 4, let's bring Spider-Man 4.
Oh yeah, and Blade 4. We need Blade 4.
Isn't Blade in the Marvel universe technically?
Apparently. And that's why I said I'm going to eat some crow for this, because I generally hate that shit. But I can honestly say I loved those Blade movies as a kid. I did not know that they were part of the Marvel clusterfuck. But
And really, they're not in terms of the modern Marvel Cinematic Universe. But yes, technically, it's a Marvel property. Yeah, Blade is. But, I mean, Wesley Snipes isn't going to be showing up in Avengers
and you know what?
5.
I think he could use a boost, because I think he went to jail and went through a rough patch there for a
He
while.
hasn't been in things in a while. I think like Expendables 2 or 3 he might have been in.
Something happened to him, boy. He got fired in jail for a bit, so I think he could probably use a few shackles.
Taxes.
Was it taxes?
Yeah, it was tax evasion.
What a badass.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But anyway,
funny how you can get away from the vampires, but you can't get away from Uncle Sam. That's interesting. But anyways.
And with that, I think we'll just pass it on there. I was just, with Toy Story 4 coming out, I wanted to pose the question, should we even bother be doing this?
Sure.
So, Josh, what's your topic?
Well, my topic this week, I sort of have two questions. I'll start out with the first one. Most of you have probably heard the saying, is money the root of all evil, or money is the root of all evil? I want to know what everyone's opinion on that is, whether you agree with the statement, whether you disagree with the statement, and why. So anyone can really chime in on this one, so fill your boots.
I don't think so.
You do not think
No, I don't think money is the root of all evil. I think that power is the root of all evil, and money is a result of power. So that's what I think it boils down to.
Sure. We'll come back to a lot of this stuff afterwards. I just want to quickly go around and get everyone's
thoughts. I don't think money's the root of all evil. And when I was searching up the quote, the actual quote is, "For the love of money is the root of all evil things," which is way more vague, and it winds up being like, yeah, sure. You can agree with that. But if you want to pigeon it right to money, then no.
And that's fine. I understand that might be the original quote, but that is not what you hear on the day-to-day.
No, it's not. It's a butchered quote. Yeah, it's a biblical quote, which is the funny part when I looked up it. But yeah, no, I don't think money's the root of all evil.
Ham, what's your opinion?
I think money is just a means of trade. That's it. That's all it boils down to, really.
I'm very surprised to hear you say that, because that's exactly sort of where my head is on this as well, is that money is actually, I hate to go too meta here, but it is a social construct.
Yeah.
It's not a naturally occurring phenomenon that we've harnessed. It's not like electricity, which exists in nature, and we've managed to figure out how to power a camera and a light bulb. This is just something that we use to figure out the dilemma of, I have a hammer, you have a carrot. I need a carrot, but you don't want a hammer. So how am I going to get what I want? Yeah. Everybody wants money. So it was kind of a clever little solution to get around that trading problem. So everyone here collectively agrees that money is not the root of all evil.
Yep.
So, okay, that's fine. I'm prepared for this. So, so if everyone agrees here that money is not the root of all evil, is money important to you? Is personal wealth important to you? And the way that I'll pose this question is, do you consider yourself to be more of a capitalist or a socialist? So are you more interested in personal wealth and growth, or are you more interested in overall growth of society and people?
Overall growth.
Yeah, definitely me too.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, sir?
I think saying that you're a socialist is a very virtuous thing to say, but I think a lot of places around the world has proved that doesn't work. So no, I'd say I'm a capitalist.
I am as well.
I'm not saying it works.
No, that's fine. You don't have to change your answer based on ours.
No.
I'm just saying, like, do you believe that it is more important to look after yourself and grow your own little empire and do the best you can with what you have as a motivator? Or do you think that we should all work together as a collective to better everyone? Which one do you think has the better outcome of success? Which model?
I think really a mix of the two is like probably the best answer, just because unhinged capitalism is just proven itself to be bad. Like how many bubbles we've had that just like explode.
Okay, what do you mean specifically though?
Like people setting up like hedge funds for like the housing crisis that happened a few years ago. And we're just stuck in a position where companies are just trying to like grow and grow and grow. And it's like, what's the purpose of like that growth?
Well,
like,
if
you're growing for no purpose, you're basically just cancer.
Well, I could argue that if you're not growing, you are dying. From a business model, from a business perspective, if you're not growing, you're not doing well.
And I think if you had maybe like more of like a socialist approach where like you take that money and you force them to put it into things that are actually going to benefit,
I get what you're saying, and this is where I agree with Colton on this, is that sounds great on paper, but here's where that falls apart. What motivation is there for me to go and come up with something totally unique something totally beneficial or revolutionary to the world, or put myself out there if it's going to benefit others more than it's going to benefit me? How do we get more people to come up with creative ideas? How do we get more people to go to work? How do you get more people to take chances and risks and start little entrepreneurships if everyone else is going to do just as well as I do? What's the point?
During the Cold War, like Russia and the U.S. were both like really being innovative. Like
But
we both got space. Who won? Arguably no one, because America's
I don't think. Oh no! I don't think that's fair to say, Ham.
But straight up communism failed. Communism is fucked for the most part, and we're having that like same thing sort of happen now. We're trying to prevent it with China coming in and like kind of expanding, and like they have a fucking huge military now, which is kind of terrifying.
Sure, and I get what you're saying, that I wasn't necessarily talking from a political sense. I was more talking about it from a personal sense. Yeah. But I do understand what you're saying about socialism and on a whole, how that essentially you can't really detach socialism from communism because they are intrinsically intertwined, right?
That's the issue.
If that's the answer, then I'm just going to burn everything down. Literally.
But that's the issue. Why it is so great to say socialism. But the thing is history has proven time and time again that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
No.
So we're still, whether or not we like capitalism or not, whether or not we like Apple literally owning, know, if it goes bankrupt, like America fails, whether or not we like that, that seems to be what's working right now. So, and yes, it's, it's nice to say like, oh, the 1% are controlling everything. A lot of people hate to say that. You always hear about the 1%. But the thing is socialism doesn't work either. Where we are like in Canada is like a mix of the two. When I was looking up socialist values, like the fact that we don't pay for our healthcare is a socialist thing.
And how is that working?
Well, that's the thing.
From an argumentative point of view.
And some people think it works and some people thinks it doesn't, just like, right at the very heart of your question, right? But no, I'd have to go with capitalism because it's the only thing that's working
The
now.
interesting point about socialism that I find when you listen to people talk about it is the term comes up, free for everyone, and I really don't like that terminology. And I listened to this when we recently had the political debate and they were talking about MUN, and one of the candidates was saying, well, there'd be free education for everyone. And
it's
I said,
not free though.
Well, no, it's not free. It's not free. But where the problem comes in line is you can't compare a university to a hospital because everyone can go to a hospital. Not everyone can go to a university. So there are some things that you can't say, all right, should just be free for everyone. And if everyone can't go. That's the problem you run into with socialism is how do you treat everyone the same, right? While also trying to motivate people to better themselves. What is the point of me going out and bettering myself if the guy mopping the floor is going to get paid the same as me doing the brain surgery?
Yes.
It makes no sense.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. But like when I talk about socialism, I'm like talking about like social capitalism. Like I think money is still important. I think having something for people to go after is important. Like, and money is a big way for people to like swing their dick around and be like, I did a good job. Where like taking care of your spot, the place you live, instead of like sitting up in your ivory tower and being like, all right,
Peasants.
See, I think you're almost confusing capitalism with elitism. It's like,
well, but it's not always. There's lots of people with shitloads of money who aren't like that. That's what I'm saying. If you work hard, make a lot of money, can buy a $10 million mansion, I don't know if you have to feel bad just because there's people starving in Africa. Nor should you have to pay more to contribute so that the people who are doing nothing can continue to do nothing. And I know it's hard to like pivot out of this because, you can be like, oh, well, Bill Gates donates loads of money. Look how virtuous and how great he is. I understand there's people on both sides that are assholes and people that are good on both sides of that. It's just, I don't know if you have to feel bad if you have money. I don't know if you have to.
You don't have to. I'm not saying you have to feel bad if you have money. It's just there's people like fucking Kevin O'Leary that just sit around and be like, money is everything. And like, what does he do besides make money?
That is true. But what
inspires thousands of entrepreneurs around all of North America?
I don't know if he inspires me at all.
Well, you're not an entrepreneur right now.
But the thing is also, guys, is that we don't know Kevin's portfolio. We don't know who's working for him. We don't know what they've managed to achieve through working for Kevin and getting paid X amount of dollars, what they might have taken on. So yeah, it is a pyramid, but as long as everyone is flowing in the similar direction, or at least striving to better themselves, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with it. I just want to, I want to sort of try and get Grace in on this a little bit, just because it's been a little bit on this side of the table here. So just give me your thoughts.
I'm definitely myself more of a socialist, and the way that I look at that is, for instance, I have 2 roommates. I make the most money in the house. If I want to go out to supper, I want to go out to supper with my roommates. They can't necessarily afford to. So I'm happy to go out to supper and pick up the tab for everybody, because that means I get to go out and I get to spend time with my friends. Now, if I'm going out to supper with 50 people, am I going to pick up the tab? No, not necessarily. So I'm not saying purely socialist, and I'm not saying I'm going to pay for everything for everyone for the rest of my life and go without. But at the same time, you know, if I have a little bit of wealth to distribute amongst particularly the people I care about, and I'm not saying to everybody, I don't donate to every charity, nothing like that. But if I can take a minute and say, you know what, I really want to see this movie, but Jimmy, who also wants to see this movie, can't afford to come right now because Jimmy's got a lot of student loans or something like that. Well, I really want to see the movie, and I want to see the movie with Jimmy, so I'm going to pay for it. You know, and I don't need to have that extra, I don't know, what does a movie cost? I don't even know, Colton, you know.
$19.25
So
for
there
an
you go.
IMAX.
So there you
Wait till
go.
it breaks $20. You're going to change your tune on that.
So there you go. If it's a matter of, okay, I can have $20 more in my bank account if I go to see this movie alone, or I can go see it with someone who I really want to see it with and really enjoy it with. And so to me, there's a lot of value in that.
And that sounds really, really nice what you're saying there, and it sounds very virtuous. And I agree, that sounds great. You are probably a far better person than I am in this sense. And the reason why I'll tell you that is because deep down, I would be lying if I said that constantly being the one to provide would not eat away at me. That would be a lie if I was to say that, because just my own personality, it would grain on me no matter how much I care about the person that's with me. The question will nag away at me. Why am I constantly the one having to pony up for this? So kudos to you that you can manage to do that.
I just think
It's
that,
great.
you know, contribution comes in all different shapes and sizes. Just because someone contributes more money, they, you know, the other person might contribute more of something else. I think of my parents. So my father was the sole breadwinner for all of growing up. And so I always wondered, you know, how does he feel about, you know, going to work 9 to 5, and he's the one to bring home the bacon, and my mother doesn't work. But what she contributed was she contributed childcare. So she was the one who every moment of the day was there to make lunch and do the laundry, and she worked just as hard as him. It was just she was contributing something different. And so that's really what I think about it. And when I think about my roommate Taylor, for instance, who does most of the cooking in the house, you know, and that's what she contributes. Instead of, if we want, you know, all 3 of us want to go to the movies, and let's say, you know, her paycheck hasn't come in yet, then okay, sure, like I'll pick up the tab for this one. And I'm not saying I pick up the tab on every single occasion, but I'm happy to do it. So,
and I like I said, I agree. That sounds really good. I wish that contribution was the currency of the day, because it would probably make our problems a lot easier if I could to trade services and barter my services to get goods. But unfortunately, that's not the world that we live in.
And I agree. And I'm not saying I'm expecting everybody else to have this attitude and do this. This is what is important to me, and that's why I do it. I don't expect other people to do it. Oftentimes, you know, if this happens and someone says, oh, you know, I feel bad because you picked up the tab last time or whatever, I said, I'm not counting. You know, you said how, you know, you might grow a little bit resentful towards.
That's just me being personally honest with myself.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I think the majority of people are in that same boat. But honest to goodness, I'm not counting. You know, I'm not saying, well, I picked up the last 3 movies and you only picked up 1. I think that's way more time and energy than I have to hold these kinds of grudges than to just go ahead and do a kind of thing.
And that's not to say that I'm Scrooge McDuck over here
No,
jumping
no.
to make coins. But
No, you're not.
but what I'll say is, like, I can do the same stuff you're doing in terms of like, hey, yeah, we'll pick up, I don't know, a pizza or something, and I'll just pay for it. But I look at it a little bit differently as you. I guess from a capitalist point of view, I look at it as like, I like the person, so I'm investing in the person
that's
and
a nice
in the
way to look
time
at it
that
too.
and the enjoyment that I get out of them. So we're doing the same thing. It's just ideologically, it's a little bit different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
The thing for me is that's how I get over and I'm not saying that I'm just crooked as sin, going around resenting everything all the time, but that's how I put that to bed in my head is, this is not me picking up for someone else all the time. This is me genuinely gifting something to them because I like them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And there's different, what is there, 4 languages of love? One is like telling people you care about them. One is doing things for people. One is buying things for them. And one is like physical touch. Like,
I like that. I never heard that before.
Oh, you never heard that? That was kind of in my head for a future topic, is talking about your languages of love. But so for me, I'm not really
ice cream works every time.
I'm
Every
not,
woman I've ever been with, you can solve a fight with a barrel of ice cream.
I'm not a giving things, like a money person typically. I'm more of a, I will do this for you because I care about you. But it seems the older I get, there are less things that I can do for people. And so sometimes what I can do is provide a ticket to go to a movie. So it's not necessarily buying their love, like that kind of attitude, but that's what I can do to contribute and show my love for a person.
Interesting. Well, boys, you want to jump in? Got anything else to add there?
It's just like, I don't necessarily want to fight about it. Like Grace having the ability to bring someone out for restaurant, literally you have it because you have a better paying job than the people in your house, which once you go down, it is the capitalist approach. If you all were paid the same, it wouldn't be able to happen.
No, it's true.
But I know we're not fighting over it. It's just as I was sitting there, I was like, all right, the only reason we have the ability to do that is because we are in a capitalist structure.
Oh, absolutely.
And it is a very nice thing to do, obviously. And I've been part of Grace giving people, paying for supper and, taking people to movies and stuff for sure. So it just winds up like, if it was actually like one or the other, like you wouldn't be able to do that in a socialist structure, really. Like you wouldn't be able to bring people out for movies, right?
I agree. And I don't, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. I don't think the question was, do we live in a capitalist society or should we live in one or the other?
What you said is fine. I just wanted to know where you stand. That's all. This just makes for interesting discussion. I'm not saying that you're wrong.
No, and that's why I said,
either,
you kind of forced me to respond. It was just like, I don't really want to be like just shooting down. Like she's clearly, obviously we all exist in somewhere in the middle of these two extremes, right?
Yeah. I don't think capitalism is necessarily bad.
No, there's a lot of wonderful things you can do with money.
It's just a monetary system.
Oh yeah, it's definitely
it's
a monetary
literally
system,
just a monetary system. I would just like to I'd like to see like more social programs. I think that'd be nice.
And I agree, as long as everyone can benefit from them, but that is not the way that our society currently works.
And
right?
we just need to be less shitty about distributing them.
And see, the other problem that I have with, and I'll just touch very briefly on the political side of this, when you have socially oriented candidates that run, they're talking about using money that doesn't belong to them. And that's the problem. And if you reword the question, a lot of the times they'll say, well, you don't want to help anyone because you don't want to contribute to this social program for the poor. They'll just go to the extreme example. And oftentimes when the opposing candidate rewords the question and says, well, why do you think it's okay to just take everyone's money? Like, why is it okay for you to steal money? If you're going to come after my character and say that I'm a bad person because I don't like to help anyone and you want to help everyone, okay, why is it okay for you to do that by stealing half the country's money? Why is that okay? And they, more often than not, they don't have an answer for it because a lot of people don't think about it that way. They just think that I'm getting something and it's just magic. It's coming out of imagination land from nowhere.
In reality, it's coming from
from the working people that are trying to climb the ladder is where it comes from, right?
Well, that's why it's so easy to take shots at the people on top. That's what I'm saying. Like, and maybe that's why the whole socialist argument kind of annoys me a little bit because for me, it winds up sounding a little bit more complaining. Ham defaulted to Kevin O'Leary right away just because he is an extreme example of a capitalist.
He is an extreme example. I don't think he's necessarily all a terrible person. I'm pretty sure he donates a decent amount of charity.
But for me, it's like I'll get rid of the charity part. It's like he provides jobs to probably hundreds of people.
Houses. Banks are getting their mortgage payments. Like that is the kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure that, like, I have no idea what the statistic is, but I would be willing to bet that the vast majority of what turns the economic wheel comes from small business in this country, for sure.
Absolutely.
Of what turns the economic wheel, what keeps people buying their Chevy Silverados, which keeps Hickman Motors open, which keeps the salesman employed, which allows him to make his mortgage payment. So it's all interconnected, right?
Yeah.
I actually know the statistic within Newfoundland. Within Newfoundland and Labrador, 97.9% of people are employed by small to medium-sized businesses.
There you go. So, yeah, that's it's kind of, I'm kind of surprised at that figure. I wouldn't think it'd be quite that high. And the only reason I wouldn't think it'd be quite that high is because I do know Newfoundland and Labrador has the largest provincial public service sector for its size of any province. Like we have more people working at the fucking DMV down in Mount Pearl than there are teachers in the province. Like it's unbelievable.
You see the speed of them?
Oh yeah, well, some of them aren't very fast. Let me tell you, it spends a bit of time down there.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Well, okay, so yeah, I think that was a good, healthy discussion. I really enjoyed that, and I'm ready to throw it off to the next person. So,
all right. So I wanted to get into which one of your friends would you put on the Joe Rogan experience?
So, do you want to explain the Joe Rogan experience to anyone back home, or? All right, it's been running for. It's a very popular podcast that's been running since 2009. They've done 1,313 episodes. So basically, he does multiple long form episodes a week with different guests, ranging from like very political figures to celebrities
Neil
to people in
deGrasse Tyson,
YouTube space, scientists, anything. He'll talk to basically anyone. And I think his longest podcast went for like 5.5 hours of just talking. So. Who do you want to put on that podcast that'll just talk forever? The answer is Josh Vey for me. If I'm forced to pick a friend, because I think he's also a very like open host that like he'll talk to you about anything. You know, your political ideas, your personal problems, relationships, anything. He'll exhaust you, and
Just like a fly on the wall, just there.
Joe.
Yeah.
Wasn't Joe also UFC commentator?
Yeah, and he was the host of Fear Factor back in the day.
That's where I remembered him from. Yeah, it was Fear Factor. I knew there was another show that he was involved with, but I couldn't quite remember.
And I think he still does commentate on UFC because I think he said, I don't watch very much of him. I've watched maybe 1 or 2 episodes of, the 1300. But he is very interested in like the MMA community. So I think he still does commentate on UFC, or at least gives his 2 cents. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But no, if I had to pick one of my friends, I guess I'd pick you just because you'll talk to him for a while. And I think you'd be able to say whatever you want to say to Joe Rogan. And he's had way more...
Alex Jones.
Yeah, he's had way more extreme figures and way more lax figures. I think he'd just fit in there. And on that show, you'd fit probably like in the middle somewhere, True, yeah. Even if he tried to get your like most extreme opinions. So, he'll listen to you. He might disagree, but...
Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't exactly sure where to go with this because I feel like I've heard the name mentioned, but I didn't know anything about the podcast. So I did some Googling and ultimately wasn't able to find too much. So I relied on Colton to explain it. Mm-hmm. So I was just kind of thinking of who do I have as a friend who really can talk to anyone about anything? And the first person that came to mind, probably because he was over to my house for supper last night, is my friend Luke, who actually listens to the podcast. Hi, Luke. He's just, I always say he can make friends with anyone. He's just such a nice, friendly guy. He can chat about anything, and just he's great to spend time with. And so I feel like you could plop him down with a total stranger and he could easily go and chat for 5 hours, no sweat. So
do you think he could talk about DMT and big gorillas for...
I don't know, but
DMT?
But he can probably
What's
talk
that
about
extreme drugs.
Oh, there we go. But no, I just think he's a smart guy. He's a fun guy. He's a great conversationalist. So I figured he could probably do it. I mean, I don't know anything about Joe Rogan. I don't know if Luke would enjoy being on that podcast, but he's a good person to have a chat with. So I figured probably.
Well, I hope so, because he'd be there for 4 or 5 hours for sure.
Yeah, I did not Google what was his shortest interview. That would have been an interesting statistic as well.
Well, the one that we watched with Alex Jones, which is probably one of 4 or 5 that I watched of Joe Rogan.
I watched the highlights of that. I didn't watch the whole thing.
That was like
3.5 hours long.
It was ridiculous because there wasn't just him. There was another guy on there as well. Yeah. And it was like really, really long for an episode, but apparently that's not even...
No, Kevin Smith, I think he was on there. And if you've seen Kevin Smith do anything, the dude just drones on forever. So yeah, it was like apparently 5.5 hours with him, I think.
Yes, bye. Wow. So for me, I didn't want to pick anyone at the table just because I sort of wanted to venture out into like the abyss to draw someone new in. And I really struggled with this because I was like, I don't know who would want to sit down and actually talk to Joe Rogan because, like a lot of people get camera shy. A lot of people get mic shy. So like initially I was going to go with a buddy of mine who lives here locally, but I was like, I can't get him to order something at a restaurant, let alone have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
So I thought about who did I know growing up or in my work experience that could just go on forever. Could be total nonsense, total foolishness, or it could be like the best story you've ever heard. And the answer is Mr. Max Peddle, who used to work with me in Goose Bay when I was a commissionaire back in probably like 2011. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that Max used to have the nickname of being called Max Gump because he was just like Forrest Gump. So if you've watched Forrest Gump, which I'm sure everyone has, he is like thrown in to little historical moments throughout the span of that film. He's just tossed in there like in the background, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is Max in a nutshell. He did like, I don't know how many years in the military, like 20 or 30 years in the military, did like 2 or 3 tours with the United Nations over in Egypt and weird places like this. And he was like over there when that genocide was happening in Rwanda, like in the vicinity. Like he's been dropped in and all of these little like niches in time. And he can go on for hours about this stuff. So you're sitting at a gate as a security guard. You got a lot of time to talk. So it'd be nothing for Max to sit there and go on with some story about, oh, Josh, boy, when I was over in Egypt, the tarantulas, my son, tarantulas, big as the truck out there, big as the truck, tarantulas out there, my son, eat you alive, carry you away, come back for more. Like, it was just entertaining as hell to listen to. And half of it, I honestly didn't know whether to believe it. I was like, this story is too crazy. But there's one in particular that I remember that I know is true, so I'm going to tell it. He got ambushed in his little convoy by some like rebels over there in, I think it was Libya, somewhere in North Africa, up there somewhere. And he was like part of the mail carrying envoy for the United Nations, which apparently was a really important job. And they got ambushed and they took all the mail, but Max wouldn't give him his bag. He would not give it to him, and he was taken prisoner, and he would not give up the mail that he had. And he used to go on about this story for ages and ages, and eventually he'd come to the point, because he had a little bit of mild dementia towards the end, so he used to tell the same story over. But I said to him, I was like, Max, boy, like, go on, now that's foolishness. Like, there's no way that's true. And he's like, oh, my son, I got a letter from the General Secretary of the United Nations and everything. I was like, go on, boy, you haven't got a fucking letter from Co-op grocery store, let alone from the United Nations. I'll be goddamned. And he came to the shed with this, like, proper, like, written up document with, like, Ban Ki-moon or something on the bottom, like, signed General Secretariat of United Nations. I was floored. So in terms of, like, storytelling and maybe, like, just going back to the past to look at some, like, conflicts and stuff throughout history, yeah, throw him and Joe together, my son, it'd be a good episode. You get a couple thousand views for sure, and it'd be entertaining. So... yeah, I'd go with Max Petal. Really nice feller, too, by the way. He's best kind.
All right, so that brings it down to me. So I would like to see good old Mo, who watches the podcast probably every week. I'd like to see him go and talk with
Mo.
Who's
Mo?
Mosifer. Mosifer.
I think he's shared every single episode since the beginning, which is better than
best
some of the
guy, Mo.
people sitting
Keep it
at this
up.
table. So.
Keep it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mo has told me some stories. Some are fucked up. Some are just bizarre. He's traveled across Canada.
Mo and Max.
Just hitchhiking. He's probably done enough drugs to kill you.
Oh, you'd get
Or
along with Joe there.
3 people.
Yeah.
And like, just like, he'll get on with like conspiracy theories and shit and just like rad shit for hours just working with him. And I think he would be a good fit for Joe Rogan. It'd be like 2 Joe Rogans.
Well,
Joe Rogan Squared.
yeah, someone who likes to
podcast.
talk a lot of knowledge with drugs, conspiracy theories. I think you just hit like the 3 pillars of Joe Rogan, you know, like that's what his podcast is a lot of the time.
And just like, I don't know, just Mo can just have a conversation about just about anything. And like, he'll throw his 2 cents in, but like,
Does he work
He's
for
just
you? Did you
wild.
say he works for you?
he used to.
Okay.
He moved away. I'm a little sad about that, but yeah, he
That's why.
moved
Interesting. Oh, good job, Mo. Bye.
Keep
watching.
sharing.
Keep watching, my son.
2 shout outs to watchers of the
Yeah.
podcast.
on.
Yeah.
Miss you, Mo. But yeah, no, that's who I'd like to see do it. Other than that, maybe Dougie. Maybe
Oh, good old
Oh
Douglas.
my God.
That'd be a good one. Who?
Get half a Goose Bay watching at least.
Oh, my son.
Yeah.
And well, Grace doesn't know this, but Dougie is an excellent choice. You get a thumbs up for that
Dougie is
one.
an excellent choice. Like, he's one of a kind.
Oh yeah, you want
To
to
say the
That's
least.
all right.
Wow. So eloquently explained there
Alright.
about Dougie. Yes.
Alrighty, so I guess we'll move on to the final topic. So this one's mine. I wanted to ask about a decision you made in your life, something probably small or inconsequential, something you didn't really think about too much, which later, surprisingly, ended up having an impact on your life. This was inspired, I guess I'll explain kind of where the topic came from. So every month in July, I work a second job at a camp called Shad. And the decision that I made was to apply for this job. It was totally on a whim. I was actually helping somebody else look for a summer job. This was not of interest to them. So I figure I'll apply. I'm looking to stay in St. John's for the summer. But I didn't think I would get an interview. When I had the interview, it was the worst interview I have ever had in my entire life. So I didn't think I would get the job.
Questions or your answers?
Oh, well, just none of the answers I were giving were good.
Oh,
they were, I wanted to crawl under the desk and die. It was such a terrible, terrible interview, but I got the job. And then when I got the job and started to learn more about it, I thought, man, this is not for me, but whatever, I'll stick it out. It's 1 month of my life. I went on to love it. I'm about to start summer number 7, and actually
Season 7.
Season 7, and actually my full-time job is a result of having worked at that summer camp for 7 years. So something that literally on a whim, I was like, oh, whatever, I'll apply. Nothing will happen. So that's kind of where this question came from, because I'm about to start season 7 now. So I just wondered if anybody else had a moment like that where, it was a small inconsequential thing, and then here they are.
Okay. All right. So I do have an answer for your question. I can't go into it a whole lot just because it's a really long and convoluted story. But what I can say is that my God, it's almost 3 years ago now. Well, two for sure. I decided I was going to get laser eye surgery done out here in St. John's. I was still living in Goose Bay at the time. And through a very long and fucking complicated process, my leaving to get eye surgery out here, which is, my God, it wasn't very long. It was probably about 5 minutes of actual, like a 5-minute moment of my life.
Procedure, yeah.
Changed the course of where I was living, where I was working, what I was doing for the next foreseeable future. So in terms of small decisions that sort of lead to a big change,
yeah, that's true.
that was definitely one. I didn't anticipate
the ripple effect.
The ripple effect that came from that. Now, at the time, it wasn't a very good scenario.
No.
But looking back on it now, it is the best decision, hands down, that I've made in the last 10 years, for sure. 100%. Because, yeah, dude, it facilitated for me to go down a totally different road that I needed to go down to get away from the shit I was dealing with in Goose Bay. So, aside from that, I won't bore you with the minutia with it, but yeah, it was definitely a tiny, tiny amount of time. 5 minutes changed the last 2 years for me, 100%.
There you go.
So, there you go. Go ahead there, Ham. What do you got?
I honestly don't have anything.
No, okay.
I have nothing. I have
Alright.
nothing for this. And this is the first time I don't have any answer, but I don't have anything in my life that was a small choice that I made that had a huge ripple effect at all. I have nothing.
Oh, okay. Well,
Nothing.
I know, Colton, you're kind of in the same boat.
You met me. That never changed the course of history, or what?
I'm in a pretty similar boat as well. My choices, they wind up being school-based choices, which I don't really know if they're truly small choices.
Okay.
For example, I never once thought I would go to MUN. If you go back to me in grade 12, I was Saint of X all the way.
That's true.
Not a chance in hell
Or
going to
McGill
MUN.
was the other one, right?
Yep. And I remember literally telling people when I did the MCAT prep, or not MCAT, it was God, what was that called?
Math placement tests.
No. It was
MedQuest.
MedQuest. When I did MedQuest, I was like, if I wind up at MUN, something went seriously wrong in my life.
There you are.
And then I wound up at MUN. But in terms of a quick choice that I probably should have put some more thought into, I remember when I was choosing what I wanted to do for my undergrad, what I wanted to do was nursing. When I was first going to MUN.
That's right, yeah.
And I remember talking to the academic advisor or whatever at the time, and I was like, yeah, I want to do nursing, and then I want to go into medicine. They were like, oh, well, if you're going into medicine, you shouldn't do nursing. And I was like, oh, why not? And he said, because you're taking the place of somebody who actually wants to be a nurse, and you don't want to be a nurse, you want to be a surgeon. So I said, yeah, that makes sense. And that was it. I just decided not to do nursing. And I remember a lot of people were like, that was pretty stupid. You should have still did nursing.
That sounds like bad advice from an academic advisor.
That's what they told me. And I was like, okay, well, what should I do? And they said, well, you should do something that has something to do with the human body. And I suck at chemistry. So I was like, oh, I'll do biology. So that's first year I went in for biology instead of nursing. And obviously that had a pretty big ripple effect. I changed from biology to psychology, from psychology eventually to English, and then English sent me to where I am now. So would have I been better off with nursing? I have no clue. I think things would have been very different if I did nursing, because I think I probably would have wound up either getting partially through a nursing degree and dropping, or making it all the way through and then being like, the sunk cost fallacy that I spent so much time doing this degree that I got to keep going. I got to force myself to go all the way.
Which we know lots of people that fell into that pot as well.
Exactly. And who knows, I might have loved being a nurse, or loved being, in the, if I made it to the medical field, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that choice, which was literally a very quick one note thing from the academic advisor, like, no, that's not right. You'll take the spot of another nurse. And I was like, that is right. I don't want to take the spot of someone who wants to be a nurse. I don't want to be a nurse. That was it.
That sounds like horrible advice for them to really give you, in terms of like, you're going to be a nuisance for us because we're going to enroll you in these classes, and you're not going to reap any reward of it. That sounds like lazy advising, which, to be honest, I'm not 100% surprised considering some of the advice I've gotten from them too. So.
There's a lot of science and medicine related master's programs that a lot of people, once they apply to med school and they don't get in, they then apply to those programs. So a lot of programs like masters in genetics and stuff like that, they fill up so fast, full of people who have absolutely no interest in pursuing it just because they want to do something before they can go to med school. So that's really, really common.
Yeah, well, that was just a quick, like, I struggled with thinking of an answer here too. So that was the quickest one I could think of off the top of my head. That I don't know if it's that interesting, but it's definitely
true, though.
Something I didn't give much thought. That changed a lot, right?
No, that absolutely.
And just to build off of her initial question that has that ripple effect type of stuff, I feel like back 2009, 2010, 2011, there was a lot of stuff going through everybody's head in terms of what are we doing. And you had to decide an awful lot in a very short amount of time where you were going to go to school, what you were going to study. Then that was like half the struggle. Then you had to realize, do I like this? Which I think every single one of us decided what the first. I mean, I was in business first. I hated that. So it was like, well, what am I going to do now? There was an awful lot of decision making that just kind of happened sporadically over the course of those 2 years. And it did affect the way that everything turned out for the rest of us in terms of what degree you got or what you went on to do before you finished or after you finished school, whatever. There was a load of different choices that were made there for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was very quick. And like I said, as someone who wasn't expecting to go to MUN, talking to a MUN academic advisor, I don't really care what they had to say anyways. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take whatever you have to say. I'm not going there anyways. So when I did apply, I changed it, right? Because we also had that MUN course where we talked to academic advisors during that course too. Yeah, the MUN trip. Yeah.
Is that when that was?
I think so, yeah. I think that's when I talked to them and I just changed. I went, I like biology, whatever.
There you go. Interesting. Cool.
Yeah, there's another job that I applied to completely on a whim and got it was working in residence as a resident assistant. I had absolutely no plan to apply to that whatsoever. And then a friend of mine was applying and said, you should apply with me. And I said, okay. And I ended up getting the job and working in res for 2.5 years. Ended up causing me a ton of stress. It ended up the first 2 years were fine. The last year was a disaster, to say the very least. But if I hadn't gotten that job, I almost certainly would have moved out of res with my friend at the time. And I can almost guarantee you that would have been a disaster as well. So, I mean, it all, that was something I didn't think about or take seriously at all. I applied on a whim and took the job, and that completely changed what was going to happen. Just like if I hadn't ended up in res, I applied to, and now this one isn't a good example of my question because I really wanted to live in res because I was afraid to live somewhere where I'd never been here before. I'm like, this is an opportunity to meet people. But if I hadn't lived in res, that was the year that we all started at MUN was when the bus strike was happening. And when Hurricane...
right. I remember that. And they came back with the $1 ride thing after they got it sorted out. You're right.
And Hurricane Igor hit. And all the houses I was looking at when I almost didn't get into res, they all say 5 minutes from MUN. Now that I've moved here and know, none of those places were 5 minutes from MUN. None of them. And so I either would have had to walk everywhere in this god-awful weather, or I would have had to take cabs and I would have run out of money. And I can almost guarantee if I hadn't lived in res, I would have dropped out and I would have gone home to Concordia. Almost certainly.
There you go.
So
interesting.
So many things that would have completely changed my life.
And with that, I think that kind of does it for us this week. We're your last podcast. And if you like what we're doing here, be sure to subscribe to the podcast feed so you never miss a new episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a like, comment, subscribe, share us with your friends. It helps grow the show. And if you'd like to support the show in another way, you can always head on over to patreon.com/yourlastpodcast and pledge your support. So with all that out of the way, I'm Colton.
I'm Josh.
I'm Grace.
I'm Ham.
And we'll be back with a new episode next week and every week thereafter until our last. So thank you for watching.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
Okay, love you. Bye.
P.S. I love you.